Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode here of In the Zone. I'm Giancarlo Aulino here with Chris Martelli. And Chris, big night last night. Golden State, their dynasty, they got their fourth ring. Steph Curry finally gets the finals MVP. What are your thoughts on just that whole game? And now Steph, that legacy, finals MVP added to it.
Yeah, dude, honestly, I'm so happy for him. This is a guy that he's had to deal with a lot of hate in his career because of the development of his three-point shot, and he's the greatest to ever do it. And, a lot of older fans that grew up watching Larry, Magic Johnson, the hard pressed era where we saw, in the doc, Michael Jordan had to literally gain weight to win. Like, this is a different league now. And a lot of the older guys are saying, Curry, he ruined the league. It's all about the three ball now. And, he's going to get obviously his hate. Everybody is when you're that good. But like how humble he is, how consistent he's been coming off of multiple ankle surgeries and continuing to just be a top five player every year in the league. This is a guy, man, honestly, he's now top 10 all time. With that win last night, with the finals MVP, with the two MVPs, with the four titles in 8 years, he is a top 10 player of all time. He won what? I think he also won a unanimous MVP in 2016 when he dropped 30 points a game on 45% from three. Like, the guy can do it all. You've seen here too, man. The biggest storyline of this finals, I don't know if you'll agree with me or maybe just add on to what I'm going to say here. It was inexperience versus experience, and experience came up on top. There was no urgency at all from the Celtics in Game 6 and in Game 5, man. Like, you tie it 2-2, it's looking pretty good, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay. Or sorry, no, it was actually 2-1, no, for the Celtics. I think they were up 2-1, and then the Warriors just came out and just did what they did. Business as usual. Klay Thompson, man, he didn't even have a good series, and they still absolutely killed them. So what did you think overall of this series? Because, man, I'm saying it right now, Steph Curry, he's a top 10 player all time now with that one.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think what he did and just turning everything around for them. Klay Thompson clearly couldn't carry the load for every single game. Like, he had his moments throughout the playoffs where he took over, won them the game. Usually was Game 6, but I think most of the time, like 90% of those games, if Steph Curry's not on the floor, I don't think they would even advance here. So Curry is a big reason why this team was successful. Wiggins, I think you could have made a case for Finals MVP if he was consistent, but he did have a couple bad games. So Curry there deserves that. Draymond Green got fouled out a couple times, foul trouble a little bit too much in other games that maybe took him out of the running, but he was just important too. So him getting over that injury and being able to perform in the playoffs, this team is far from done, but next year is going to be a different story because there's a lot of guys coming back here.
Yeah, man, I think, you're looking at what they've been able to do consistently, and it's just absolutely outstanding stuff. Like, this is a team that's been just unbelievable for so long, and they know what they're doing. Draymond Green coming off of a fantastic last two games. The guy was just everywhere. He was all over the place. Yeah, sorry, man. My computer was a little laggy there, but Draymond Green, sorry, man. He like game 1 and 2, he was terrible. Like, I remember seeing the tweets from his mom, like, "Oh, where's Draymond? This is a clone." And then game 5 and 6, like, again, talking about the urgency, and they've been there before. They know what it takes. Draymond Green really came in. He was a nuisance. He was bothering all those players. Continued to just dominate, and then he just got the job done at the end of the day. He had, I think, 8 assists last night. He was facilitating. You saw his pace. He was the guy that always wanted to be the first one up the floor if they had a fast break. Draymond was sprinting back, trying to get a forced foul or force contact to not get the bucket. And, you know, I'm glad you brought up Wiggins because the guy, like, it's his first finals and he absolutely balled out. He averaged, I want to say, 18.5 in the finals. He just shut down Tatum to that elite level that I don't think I've ever seen Wiggins tap into before. I knew he was always a great offensive player, but seeing how much his game is elevated defensively, dude, I was in awe. Like, I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, this guy is poor man's Kawhi Leonard. And that isn't even an insult. Like, Kawhi Leonard in his prime, most dominant players I've ever seen. So the fact that I'm considering Wiggins, I have to give him all the credit in the world. He actually balled in this game, and he was the X factor in the long run.
Yeah, I agree there, and it's interesting that Andrew Wiggins was a story here because there was a lot of talk about him coming in, like Jordan Poole, what he was able to do in the other series, and I think Wiggins stepped up more, showed the all-star caliber player he is, and I thought it was fitting when he was guarding Jason Tatum because there's some history there when Tatum put out a tweet in 2012, 10 years ago, saying that Jabari Parker is better. He took that personally. Maple Jordan came out and he sent him home and he shut him down in game 6. So I think it was a good Canadian heritage moment from Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, you gotta shout out to Jabari Parker too. I mean, Jabari Parker's not in the league anymore, but you know, I guess Andrew Wiggins, like you mentioned, Maple Jordan took that personally, and he absolutely locked down Tatum. Jason Tatum, man, like I guess we'll quickly talk about him. He just did not look like himself. I know he had, I think 2 of the 6 games he had were good, but other than that, just a lot of negative stuff that we saw. His turnovers, I sent it in the group chat on WhatsApp. He's the first player in postseason history to have 100 turnovers in a postseason. Now, yeah, the game is changing. There's a lot more fast break opportunities, but you can't be having 100 turnovers in a postseason. That's just unacceptable. Again, he just wasn't. He didn't look defensively motivated at all. Too, like when he was going up the court, he was trying to throw it to guys like Horford and Robert Williams, and he just knew that the pace of the defense with Wiggins, with Poole, with even Gary Payton down the stretch, they always have the active hands. And that was a fucking problem for Tatum and Brown, man, throughout the whole series. So it was really concerning to see Tatum struggle that bad because I'm going to ask you this. Did that performance did it outrank Paul George's bubble performance?
Oh, man. I'll say no just because Tatum is still young. And he, like, throughout that whole series that they had in Brooklyn, I think he was unbelievable. He had some bad games against Milwaukee, but they were guarding him differently. So I'll say no for now. But just the finals, I think that was bad. Like, Brown really stepped up, and that's what I thought Tatum was going to do. He wasn't that good every single game. He had more moments there where Al Horford was bailing him out. So I think he's going to look back on this obviously and grow from it. Probably be a learning experience, but I think it was disappointing if you're the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and I said it to you. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know I said it to my brother, but Jaylen Brown as well. When he was on, he was the best player, arguably, on the floor, and when he was off, he was off. Like even in Game 5, he just did not have a good game. Yesterday, he had a fantastic game, by far the best Celtic scorer on the floor, but they both couldn't really get going together at the same time, and that's just how great the Warriors' defense was. Like Wiggins was fantastic down the stretch, even Draymond Green, like I mentioned. So they really shut down the Celtics stars, and that was the biggest. I think that was the biggest storyline going in here. But I want to ask you because they posted on Twitter after the game, the Celtics, that this offseason they're trying to go out and get a floor general type point guard. Who do you think they're kind of hinting at, and who do you think would fit that Celtics team, man, to really put them over that hump again?
Right. Yeah, I saw that. I think the only name that really comes to mind is Chris Paul, but I don't know, with Phoenix, I don't think they'll get rid of him unless there's an offer where they decide to move on. But if I'm Boston, maybe he has a couple years left. I know he's 37, so who knows how he's going to perform next year. But if you're Boston, go after Chris Paul and maybe like Al Horford. He's another older player. You manage his minutes, you manage Paul's minutes. It's just going to be giving up draft picks. I think is going to be the difference maker for them going forward.
Yeah, but if you're a team like Boston and you've seen, I mean, Brown and Tatum have already been together for quite some time now. Like it's been 6 years, I think. Do you try and trade one of them for a really, really good star point guard like a Gilgeous Alexander, or do you just kind of keep it with Jalen and Tatum for now?
Yeah, I'd probably keep it for now just because they're still young enough. Like, I know the Raptors were in a situation, but when they traded for Kawhi, like, DeMar was late 20s. So at the time, it made sense. If you do it now with Parker and Brown, right before they hit their physical prime, it might not really do much because it might set them back maybe 2 years before they end up getting back to the finals. So I'd run it back with them, but if you're gonna get a point guard that's like a veteran, maybe find some way to manage how many assets you give up. I think that's probably the likely place to look to. Probably a trade market.
And it's funny too, because we talk about how hard the East is, going to the finals. They were worn down. They had to go 7 against the Heat. They had to go 7 against the Bucks. And there's already guys out there saying, yeah, don't worry, Celtic fans, you guys are going to be back there next year. And it's like, have we forgot that Giannis is in the he's in the Eastern Conference? Joel Embiid, it seems like, is getting better every single year. You got Brooklyn next year. If they get going, like, I don't know if the Celtics, I'm not going to say they're never going to be there again. It's just the competition in the East. This might have been the year where it's like, this might have been your best shot, at least for the next 3 years. So what are your thoughts on those people saying, yeah, Celtics are back there next year? I don't know about that. It's tough.
Yeah, I agree, especially Brooklyn. I thought they were going to win that first round over the Celtics. So if you get Ben Simmons back next year and he's healthy and he actually wants to play and he's invested in them, and you also have the other Curry brother you have to worry about if he gets hot. I think they're a dangerous team. I'll still go Brooklyn next year being the top team in the East if like Ben Simmons returns to that form, and then under them will be Milwaukee. But Middleton, who knows how he's going to be after that injury? Might be like a Clay for all we know. So they're kind of like the question mark. And then you have the Raptors coming up, Cleveland's coming up. So yeah, the East is improving a lot, and this was probably their best opportunity for now. But I think that's why I wouldn't trade Brown or Tatum because they're so young that in 3 years, when some of these teams get older, they're going to be in that prime position to make a run for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, man, I agree too. I love Brown and Tatum a lot. I think you got to still groom them. This is a learning curve. They're young still, but I want to quickly talk about the depth players. Down the stretch we saw. I mean, maybe not in game 5 and 6 because the bench players were non-existent, but throughout the playoffs, you saw what Grant Williams could do. You saw what Derek White can do under the bright lights. Which guy, Aulino, to you stood out the most in terms of the depth pieces on Boston?
Yeah, White kind of came out of nowhere for me. Like that one game he took over and started draining every single three that he was attempting, but I'm still gonna lean more towards Williams just because of all those block shots. Like this guy was injured and still so crucial for them. All those blocks he was getting, and he was keeping them in the game for the most part. And then they start coming back. They take it down to 9 points the lead. So if he's not making those blocks, that could have been ugly, and maybe Boston fans would have left the arena after the third quarter.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for next year that the commentators were saying was regardless of the result in Game 6, I think it was in the early fourth quarter, they were saying, can you imagine what this Celtics team could be like if they keep everybody? Let's say they run it back, and you have a healthy Robert Williams for the whole year, like. They could be a scary team, but again, I'm just going to put my money on Giannis because that guy is the best player in the world. No one is stopping that guy when he's motivated, even in Game 7. Had a hell of a game, just the depth pieces, and without Middleton, I think that's what really was the difference there. But I agree with you, man. Like Robert Williams in the playoffs was just getting better and better as it went on. And, there were all these reports and articles saying, yeah, Robert Williams is on one leg right now. And it's like, well, the dude is still averaging 7.5 rebounds and 2.5 blocks every game on one leg. Like, that's impressive nonetheless. So he had some tough matchups in the playoffs. He had to go up against Bam. He had to go up against Bobby Portis and Giannis. So he was worn down. And, the fact that even though the Warriors had a smaller lineup, other than, because Williams played about 30 minutes to Looney's 24, they tried mixing it up. They went with Otto Porter at the 5 a couple times. Draymond Green, as we know, can guard any position. I'll just ask the same question, man. In terms of the depth pieces on the Warriors side, who are you most impressed with? Because to me, honestly, I'm going to say this. He used to play for the Raps, Gary Payton. Like, he came back from that injury, and the defensive momentum and mojo that he brought in, especially a guy, I know Iguodala didn't play much in this series, but when a guy like him is yelling and motivating you on the bench to, hey, don't worry about that foul. We'll just keep grinding it out. Active hands. That's going to benefit a guy like Gary Payton. And I think Payton was, to me, the biggest depth surprise in this one.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. I think Payton's going to be the guy that got away. They had him in the system after all the teams that he was bouncing around with, trying to figure out, like, what style's going to work for him. And then Raptors 905 have him, and then he leaves after. So if they kept him, I think he would have been a perfect fit on the Raptors, the Glove Junior, the midden over there. So it's good to see. Obviously, he's probably not going to have that same level of career as his dad at this point, but he can still be a guy that you can go to off the bench that's going to stop the best player on the other team and help your defense insane amounts of just not making guys work too hard, because he comes in his 5 to 10 minutes, makes them rest a little bit, gets a couple buckets here and there, but he's always locking down that guy. So if you can have him in the fold there for the next 4 or 5 years and extend him, pay a little bit more, I think it's going to be worth it for Golden State.
Yeah, and also now I want to quickly talk, as we're just going to stick with the final teams for now with the theme. We all know that the Warriors, they have 2 big free agents that just want to chip, Wiggins and Jordan Poole. They have a couple young buckaroos that haven't really played in Wiseman, Moody, and Kuminga. There have been ramblings, man, that Jordan Poole wants that big time contract. So does Andrew Wiggins. You have these young potential superstar bench youngsters right now on the team. What direction do you think the Warriors should go in? Should they trade the young guys to get a good center? Should they just run it back, as Clay is kind of starting to look a little older? What do you think would be best, man, for the Warriors if they want to continue to win and Curry ties MJ for 5?
I would it might be an unpopular opinion, but I would just go with Wiggins right now, because I know what I'm getting out of him. His offense doesn't really take away from what the team wants to do. With Poole, we've seen a lot of times where he might play hero ball a little too much, and if he's not going, then he's going to miss shots and cause turnovers, get the other team back in the game. So I would say, you know what, Poole was a valuable guy. We won a championship, but I would risk moving on from him if I can get a center that can come in and fit this style, get more rebounds, make Draymond the power forward, and make him be that guy that helps Curry with the offense, getting assists. And I would keep Wiggins for the next few years.
I'm right there with you, man. Like, Wiggins to me is a guy, if you even, I mean, he's already cashed out in his career when he got that extension with the Timberwolves, and a lot of people, why are they paying him that much? He's not, he's a liability defensively. And as we see with maturity and, with Draymond Green being the main, one of the best defensive players we've ever seen, he definitely has benefited Wiggins. He's changed his mentality on the court. And you just see that Wiggins now he's still fairly young, 27. He's been in the league for 9 years already. This is a guy that knows what it takes. If I'm a guy like, let's say Klay Thompson and the contract talks get a little closer, I'm saying, yeah, we should keep Wiggins, as I should probably be playing about 60 games next year in the regular season and playing about 30 minutes a night, as I think that would be best for the Warriors long term. And Wiggins is a guy we've seen, man. He could play every single game. He's he's a very liable worker and a reliable just teammate. I think you're going to get the effort from Wiggins night in, night out. And yeah, Jordan Poole, tunnel vision. He's a great scorer, but at times he can hurt you tremendously. Whereas you can't really say the same about Wiggins, because the guy's he's great defensively, great with the three ball. Let's talk about his 3-point shooting. Holy shit. He's improved a lot in that regard. So there's just way too many areas for me that Wiggins has improved in where I just comfortably say, yeah, let's let him walk, because that would, I think, be a bad idea. But where do you think Jordan Poole would end up going? Do you see him going to like a New York Knicks, big market, big time type of attitude?
Oh yeah, probably. That would fit perfectly with his style, and it would motivate him more. I think just of the kind of fans that would just rally behind him. I think that would probably be the best fit for him, a big market team, or Sacramento. If he goes there, he can be the star. He can be that guy that draws people to that market. But like, I think a lot of teams will be interested in him. It's just he needs to look at the right fit. Like on the Warriors, he has guys around him that will maybe help when he has a bad game. If he goes to the Knicks and everybody's going to have a bad game, he's going to get the blame for it. So he should be a little bit more selective with the next team that he joins if it's not the Warriors.
Yeah, man. For me, Jordan Poole, I just love these situations specifically in the NBA because the guy's under 22 years old. He was a late first round pick. A lot of people gave up on him because, again, Clay and Wiseman and Moody and all these young guys coming up, and Poole ends up being the guy that benefited the most, man, from Curry's injury. Let's just call it how we see it. When he got injured and Poole started, the guy was dropping like 21 a game. Like, he was just out there balling, kind of like what Anthony Simons was doing this year with the Trailblazers. Very similar numbers, but we did see Simons get about, I think it was like 20 million. It wasn't a max deal by any means, but at the end of the day, Aulino, it comes down to ego. And I think Jordan Poole might have a bigger ego than Wiggins. I think Wiggins now, he's been, like I mentioned, he's been in the league. I think he's a little bit more humble, playing around stars like Curry. So I think me and you are on the same page here. I think Jordan Poole might be the guy to go if there is a guy that is going to end up dipping. And I would sign Wiggins, no doubt about it. But we got to move on. I want to quickly talk more about the Raps. There have been constant, and I want to say constant, man, because I've been, we look up NBA and NHL rumors every day. We're sports nuts. That's just how it goes. Let's just be blunt about it. But OG Anunoby has been a guy that's been in trade talks for the last 2 weeks. Actually, quite frankly, since the playoffs ended for the Raps. He just was not happy with his role with the team. Scotty Barnes is looking like the face of the future. Siakam, the face of the present for now. The Raps obviously do have glaring team needs. They need a better point guard, in my honest opinion. They need a more reliable, healthy point guard, and they need a goddamn good center if they want to be a great playoff team next year. So if you're the Raptors in the situation they're in with OG Anunoby not being happy with his role with the team, do you try and talk him out of leaving, or do you try and go all out and make a blockbuster move this offseason?
I would like them to keep OG just because he's been a part of this whole run, drafted by the team, and just that first year really stepped up big time for them in the playoffs. He was that guy that it was a need for the team. They never had that small forward. They were always looking for it. Like Damari Carroll, they signed and it was a horrible deal after, but like they were always looking for that guy to play that position, and they finally drafted one, and it worked. Like defensively, it was amazing. Then they bring Kawhi in. His role kind of changes. He's still an offensive guy, improves his three, and now we're in a situation where he's so valuable that they they have this fit for him, Barnes, Siakam. They just don't know where to put them at what times of the game, and it kind of affected his scoring. But I don't know. I'd still run it back with him. I don't want to see him go. Big fan favorite over here, so I'm sure a lot of people won't be too happy about him getting traded if it's not for like something significant. But even looking at some of the teams that are rumored, like I'll just show you this here on Twitter. If you just type in OG Anunoby, this is how like much teams want him. You got the Blazers in one. Everybody looking at the Portland Trail Blazers, then Denver. Like all these people that are fans all of a sudden of the Raptors that want to see him on their team. So it just shows you how valuable a guy like OG could be. And I don't know. I don't want to see him get traded.
I mean, it's tough because Scotty Barnes coming to this team, and he was a very raw type of prospect. Like, I knew he would be great. I didn't know how great he would be, honestly, Aulino. I thought, like, maybe we take Jalen Suggs, maybe we take Jalen Green, maybe they fall. And we took Scotty Barnes, and at the time, I'm like, you know what? He's a physical specimen. I think he could be great. But what I saw from him in the playoffs and how many plays they ran around him, it's kind of like, all right, like OG's been here for 5.5, 6 seasons now. And it's like, shit, you're in a tough spot here. OG does have the tools in his toolbox to be great. But can he, under this circumstance and under, the game plan of Masai Ujiri and Nick Nurse? Dude, honestly, I don't really know. If you're going to keep Scotty at the 4 or even at the 3, that pushes OG's minutes from about 35 to like 28, 29. And his production thrives, obviously, with more minutes. So it's going to be tough because I said to you before the pod went live, like, is he going to be accepting of a fringe starter, like best case scenario, best bench player? I don't think so, because he's been with the team for so many years. And the glaring need, Aulino, like the need that just stares us in the face every day, is that center spot. Like Khem Birch is great, a great defensive center that you can rely on for about 20 minutes. He always gets into foul trouble because he does have active hands in the paint. But Chris Boucher is not going to cut it. He's obviously taken a big step forward. Kudos to him. He was the best player in Game 6 for us. But we need a better center. And the whole mock trade around OG, it led us to Rudy Gobert. If you're doing that, I think it could be a potential home run. Dude, can you imagine Gobert, Siakam, and Barnes with the rebounding and the defensive ability? I don't know if anybody really would want to play us, including Giannis at that point. So if I'm going to go out there, fiddle with the trade market, see what the offers are, and all of a sudden you're getting offers for Aiden and Gobert, I might be doing it, man.
Would you take Gobert or would you take Aiden? Because one is a little bit well-rounded. Like Gobert offensively doesn't exist, but defensively he's unreal. Like which one would you rather have?
I think, honestly, man, call me crazy. I think I'm still taking Gobert over Aiden. I know the age difference. I think they're like 7 years apart, but you said it right there. He doesn't have to score. He's never had to score. So if he can get you 10 points and 15 boards, as he's been doing the last 7 years, be an all NBA defensive guy, then that's, I think, all you really need, man. But if you get DeAndre Aiden, it's a similar situation with Phoenix because you already have 3-4 guys that will probably put up more shots than him. No, unless Trent wants to take a little bit less touches. But this all translates due to like what happens with OG, because Trent's been also in trade rumors, which I think is a big fat no. I would not trade Trent, even on his salary. It's amazing. It's a bargain. But this all comes back. I want to talk about it quick. Fred VanVleet, man, he's getting paid $20 million. We saw his leg injury, very, very serious hamstring injury. If you're the Raps, and I know his trade value it's still probably high, as he does have the record for most points by a Raptor, but do you trade him this offseason?
Yeah, it would be a tough conversation, but I know it won't happen. I would get JV back. You bring him
Yes, man.
trade him to the Pelicans. I know him and McCollum, you can probably do something similar to what Portland did with him and Dame, but you give them Van Vliet, Raptors get JV on a nice deal. He's a perfect center for this team, and you can see what Van Vliet would bring, two-way player for the Pelicans. I know it won't happen though, but if that's a trade, I would be down for that.
Yeah, dude. Like I actually that's a sneaky option because Gobert and Aiden are the guys where it's like, okay, you know that they're both unhappy with their situation. So those are going to be the two guys that are always linked in the trade. But if there was another center where it's like kind of off the board, it's probably him. I don't know if you can agree with me here, but like Steven Adams, as the playoffs went on, he didn't look too good. But I even think a guy like Steven Adams with the Raps would be fairly good too. So there are options out there. They don't have to be a primary scoring center. Like I would be happy with a Capella, a Gobert, an Aiden, of JV. JV's offensive game has just blossomed. But yeah, dude, in a perfect world, I'm doing JV for Fred VanVleet. Call me crazy, but that would easily benefit the Raps 100%.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that'd be. I think they can't go wrong. Like unless it's going to be somebody that's going to take so much of the possessions away from guys like Barnes and Siakam. Like I don't think you could really go wrong with it. It's just going to be who's going to be relied on when it counts to get rebounds in the fourth quarter, and is there a guy out there that you can trust defensively in the fourth quarter? Because like guys like JV when he was on the Raptors, they never had him in the fourth quarter. Then you look at Gobert in Utah; they need buckets. They keep him out in the fourth quarter. And Aiden was like sometimes on the bench for the third and half of the fourth quarter. So it's going to be a guy that you can trust in that situation if you're going to go out and trade OG.
Yeah, dude. And at the end of the day, too, like we got to understand that in this day and age, especially in the NBA and how um, integrated social media is with the NBA, you have to understand that if you're a GM like Masai Ujiri and you have the ring and you've been successful, you make that big trade maybe for that big center. You got to sit down with that center and be like, listen, you're not going to be getting like let's say it's so this is where my point leads if it's like a DeAndre Aiden where he's 23, 24 years old, he wants to shoot let's say 15 times a game. You sit down with him and you say, listen, Siakam just came off 28, 8, and 5. Scotty Barnes is literally going to be the face of this franchise. You need to shoot a solid 12 times at most, and you have to make 60% of them in the paint, close range, dunks, layups, whatever it is. You're going to be the bully. And if you can accept that role, then you get kicked out of town. So I feel like nowadays what we saw at the end of it with Monty Williams and DeAndre Aiden, I don't know if I'm correct when I say this, but I feel, Aulino, you can maybe chime in here. If the managers, the coaches, and the players have that personal relationship, you know what I mean? I just feel like a lot of them nowadays, they're so glued to their phone and what they're learning on the fly, whether it's a fashion trend or a pickup game. I feel like there's a lot of players in this league that do not pay close attention to in management relationships. And I think this would be the big home run if they can manage to do that with a center coming to the Raps.
Oh yeah, definitely. I nailed it right there.
Yeah, and then so now we got to quickly move on. I want to talk more about the NHL because we are in the Stanley Cup Finals. Game number one, dude, was an absolute. It was a hell of a game. I mean, Tampa was down 3-1. They come back. Nick Paul obviously he has to score because he's clutch like that. I'll quickly ask you, Darcy. I mean, Colorado did something that every other team did not do against the Tampa Bay Lightning in this playoffs, and that was get as many shots early on the net at Vasilevsky. What were your thoughts on the way the Avs played? They absolutely torched the Lightning in shots, high scoring chances. And Vasilevsky, for the most part, man, he stood on his head in this one. And they still couldn't get the job done. So what do you think Tampa has to do, man, to bounce back and be successful here?
Yeah, Tampa, I think, has to continue playing their game and not get themselves a little too open because we saw the Leafs. I think the Leafs, that was their loss, like their series to lose, and they showed why. Like the games they were up, and then all of a sudden they let Tampa go in because they tried to be a little too offensive and go away from the structure. I think Colorado saw that what the Leafs did, and they're learning from the Leafs' mistakes, and we saw an OT just the way they were able to put that away with Burakovsky. It was a minute and 30 seconds in. They found that play, and he scores. So I think they're going to look at that Leafs series in detail, like every single game, and look at patterns in Tampa's offense and how they transition off the puck. And I think that's why I got Colorado. It sounds like crazy, but I had them in 5, and I'm going to stick with Colorado.
Wow, in 5. That's a surprise. I have the Lightning in 7. I think at the end of the day, it's very similar to the Celtics and the Warriors. You have an inexperienced team the Avalanche have had a lot of long runs in the playoffs, but you look at, this is the dance. This is the big final. Tampa Bay has all the experience in the world. The Avalanche do not. But again, I got to tip my cap to the Avalanche in game 1. They looked like they belonged. They looked arguably like the better team. Cale Makar is an absolute problem. A lot of people talk, dude, about his offensive ability, and trust me, his offense is probably top 10 in the league, and he's a D. But his defensive game and how great it's come along the last couple of years is really what separates him from any other defenseman. And he looks like the best player on the ice when he's on his game. Darcy Kemper doesn't even have to really be outstanding. That's the beauty of it with how good this Avalanche team is. If Kemper can give you 25 saves a night, you're pretty golden. But I just think the way Tampa Bay is now, getting Point back at such a key time, I got to go with the Lightning here, man. I think, experience plays a huge factor in these moments. And I think, and we've seen it, dude. Vasilevsky and Stamkos, as the series goes on, they get better. So watch out for Vasilevsky come game 3, game 4. He's going to be a lot better. But this has been an absolutely outstanding playoffs. It's been loaded with great moments. We saw what McDavid did, getting almost 30 points and going through only 3 rounds. Just absolutely amazing. I want to quickly talk about the Leafs before we go off the air. I actually saw today, this is new, that the Leafs have started talks with Jack Campbell, and they are trying to re-sign Ilya Mikheyev. Now, if you really think about it, and we're diehard Leaf fans, so we know the salary cap situations, that is almost impossible unless they make a big-time trade and it's in the works, whether it's a Muzzin, a Kerfoot, a Nylander. How do you think, Aulino, they can sign Mikheyev and Campbell successfully?
Yeah, I don't know how they can maneuver some of the salaries out of it. Like, you look at guys on the third line, like Kerfoot, Tavares on the second line, Nylander, and then you have Bunting, who you have to look 2 years from now because he's going to be in the final year of his deal this coming year. And then Marner, Matthews, obviously, but Riley's getting an extension. His money's going to kick in. I just don't see how you can afford both unless you have already a deal where Kerfoot and Mrazek are out. The $1.5 million from Simmons and Kessel's 1.2 mil, but even then, I don't see a way both of them stay. I think if you're going to keep Campbell, it's going to be at a reasonable salary unless he wants to sign long-term for less money. But I see Mikheyev being the guy that they probably keep out of the two.
Yeah, dude, honestly, here's the beauty of it all. You talk about how important the salary cap is in this league and how it kind of fares out the playing field of all the teams. And you look specifically at the Leafs over the years, and it's like, okay, this is a situation where the salary cap is actually doing its job. If there's no salary cap, the Leafs team is a super team, and it's not fair. We could get to re-sign Campbell, get to re-sign Mikheyev. We can even go out and get maybe a cheaper, underrated defenseman. But Jack Campbell at $1.65 million, dude, might have been one of the biggest steals I can remember in recent Leaf history. So the fact that we're even trying to talk to him at this point, you got to give kudos to Dubas, because if I was him, I'd probably just give up after that playoffs. It's like, okay, this guy's worth probably 5.5 at this point. And, if he gets $4 million and we somehow can manage to ship out Muzzin, who's getting, I think, $5 million, how the hell are we going to pay Mikheyev? Because he said he wants 4.5. So to me, dude, this screams, and I don't want to say it, but the more I go on social media and I go on Twitter and I go on Instagram, this might scream, dude, the end of the William Nylander era in Toronto. And we've been talking about it for years. But this feels like it, dude. This feels very real to me. So, what do you think about William Nylander potentially leaving if you sign Mikheyev and Campbell? Does that benefit your team, or does that hurt your team? Because the whole rumor circulating Nylander, it's either St. Louis or it's Philadelphia at this point, and the rumor is they're aiming to get a defenseman in that deal.
Yeah, I think Nylander. If you saw the way he played at the World Championships, that's a Nylander I want on the Leafs. But like, you have to look at his stats. So he had a career year. He's making less than $7 million. That's a steal, I think. So unless you're gonna get a proven defenseman who's gonna go day in and day out, play like Riley or close to Riley's level, then you're probably just trading a guy just for the sake of getting a grinder or whatever that the media wants in Toronto. So I don't know. I think it's too risky unless you know what you're getting back. I wouldn't trade him for a draft pick or like a fourth pairing D who's 21 and has all this potential but isn't proven yet. So unless you're getting a proven guy in return, that's the only way I would trade Nylander.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think, you're looking at Nylander. Like, I don't want to believe it at all because he's been so great over his years. And remember when he held out those years ago when we first started the pod and it was causing a stir? It was on our first couple episodes. We were talking about it. And then now it's like, yeah, his contract is great, but he doesn't have that attitude. He doesn't go day in, day out. And it's like, well, you put him on the top line, he's getting you 90 points, no doubt about it. Like, he's that silky of a playmaker. Even he could snipe it too. He had a career year in goals. This is a guy that I would keep. This is a guy that I would not trade just to try and bolster your D. As Giordano's taken a great pay cut, which could definitely benefit this team. I think another year of Sandin and Liljegren development doesn't hurt either. So I don't want to say run it back with everybody the same, but I'm not trading William Nylander. I agree there. But I want to end today's pod on a kind of mysterious note because the draft and the free agent frenzy's coming up. Tkachuk and Gaudreau need contracts, and Tarasenko is a guy that's looking like he might be on the way out. The New Jersey Devils, dude, have been linked to so many players because of the salary cap that they have and their second overall pick. So, out of Tarasenko and Gaudreau, which one do you think the Devils should go and get, and what do you think they can get back for that second overall pick?
Yeah, I think Goudreau's probably going to re-sign with Calgary, and they have a kind of a loophole. But Monahan being injured, they can LTIR him and like buy more time. So I think he's likely to stay. But Tarasenko, I think, is a perfect fit. His salary cap, I think, average is like 7 point something the last time I checked. So he can fit in, and he's got years left. So Tarasenko would be a good one. They got Subban's contract coming off the books now. That's 6.6 mil. And I think that's going to help them too. So New Jersey next year could be a contender there in the East, kind of like what Carolina was a couple years ago where they surprised everyone. But yeah, New Jersey's looking good. I would say the second overall pick, though, they should look at moving or talk with some teams to see what you can get. Because if you're not going to get somebody that's going to help your team right now, then I think you're at that stage where do you really need an extra 5 years to rebuild this team?
Yeah, and dude, I love that point. They've already had so many youngsters they've drafted over the years, and Pavel Zacha apparently has officially called it quits with the Devils the other day. He said he's not going to re-sign, and Jesper Bratt, dude, like what a fucking player, 5th round pick. And now he had 70. He basically was over a point a game. And now, yeah, we did talk about the inflation of offense this year. I don't know if it's going to be like that again. I hope so. Very fun. But they have to re-sign Bratt. They have the second overall pick. They're going to use that as leverage to get, I want to say, if not Gaudreau, maybe a Forsberg or a Tarasenko, a well-known right winger that could put the puck in the net. And, dude, can you imagine a guy like a Tarasenko or a Forsberg with that nifty playmaker in Jack Hughes? Like that could be special, man. And Luke Hughes is also on the team, so that's only going to motivate him to play with his brother. And you have Dougie Hamilton, who I think, last couple of years it's been unfortunate. He's had a lot of scary injuries, but I think when he's healthy, he could be a problem. And then, of course, the only problem with the Devils is their goaltending. I mean, Blackwood is now a free agent. Are they really going to re-sign him after the season he had? Really, he hasn't really improved on his development the last couple years. So there are a couple question marks with even the Devils' goaltending. I saw they were linked to Binnington. I saw they were linked to Ville Husso as well. So one of the two on the Blues, and even this is going to sound hilarious, but they were also linked to Marc-Andre Fleury, which I don't see that happening at all. But I mean, there is that iconic history in New Jersey with Brodeur as the number one goalie. So maybe Fleury wants to end it just to say he played on the same team as Brodeur did. I don't know, but there's intriguing options in New Jersey nonetheless.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even like I don't know, they had something there. Like when they got Crawford, I thought that was going to be helping them, veteran goalie with a cup winning experience, but then he ends up retiring. So that one was like I think a blow for them. I think they had some high hopes there of turning their team around with Crawford.
Yeah, I mean, I love how you brought up the comparison with Carolina because you don't really know what to expect with the Devils, and I want to say that division in general, like next year is going to be an interesting year for the Metro division. You don't know how far down the Caps are going to go. Like let's say a couple guys are regressing or they leave because dude, Tom Wilson had that ACL tear, which is not good, and then you have Philly who it couldn't get any worse. And, I got to bring them up because they just signed Tortorella, 4-year deal. It's going to be a completely different narrative and coaching mentality in Philly. I mean, he fits that system perfectly. He's like gritty, aggressive type of coach. Can you see Tortorella turning this Philly franchise around? Because they're in a bit of a hole there in Philly.
Yeah, I don't see it. Unfortunately, I think after 2 years, I think he's going to be gone. I think Vegas would have been the perfect fit for Tortorella. That was a team with like guys who have experience, like Petrangelo's there. You have guys that went to the finals on that Vegas team in their first year, and Jack Eichel. Like I think Tortorella or whoever is like with him and just running things like on his team, like should have made a strong push with Vegas just to try and get him there because I think that would have helped him. He was already on, even on Columbus, like that was a situation everyone thought he's just going to be there temporary and then get fired. He ends up winning a Jack Campbell, should have won another one, or Jack Adams, sorry, but like that was a team he really turned around. I think Philly's looking for something similar. I just don't see them having that kind of leverage that Columbus had with younger players. They have older guys like JVR still there, and they have to find replacements there to step up for Giroux. I just don't see it. I think it's going to be a 2-year thing.
Yeah, and the other thing too, man, it always comes back to is the goalie, unfortunately, in terms of, fringe type of teams. And when you draft a guy like Carter Hart as high as you did, and he had that great rookie year, and then the last couple of years, yeah, the team defensively in front of him has gotten a lot worse over the years, but he's got to kind of, hold his weight too, and he hasn't been doing that. So I think Carter Hart, if they want to be successful, like me and we talked before the season started this year that, if Carter Hart is going to be a top 10 goalie in the league, Philly might win their division because of the acquisition of Ryan Ellis. And, Ryan Ellis flat out just played 4 games. He technically took the year off. So, I mean, they lost Giroux, which is always going to hurt. Couturier had those injuries too. So it's going to be interesting to see with that division all in all. I still think the Hurricanes are probably the favorite next year in that division, but I like the way the direction the Devils are going, and I think they're going to be a very intriguing team next year. But with that being said, man, I think we're going to call it today. We talked about a lot of stuff. Steph Curry cementing his legacy, four freaking rings, 2 MVPs, 1 Finals MVP. Needs 1 more to tie MJ. Talked about Leaf trade rumors. Talked about signings. Talked about the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. Me and you are both on opposite sides. I love it. That's competitive. But with that being said, this is Chris, Giancarlo Aulino in the zone, signing out.